I still remember the first time my boots touched American soil. Not as a visitor, not as a friend, but as a prisoner. We thought we were fighting for a cause, for a nation that demanded loyalty. Yet, in that single moment, when the gates opened and I saw what America truly was, I understood the terrible truth: we never had a chance. What I witnessed in those first days shattered everything I believed. The food, the machines, the laughter of children, the endless rows of factories, the cities that seemed to breathe with energy and light. Each detail was a crushing reminder of why our armies collapsed, why our pride was misplaced, and why the war was lost long before the battles even began. This is not just my story. It is the story of thousands of men like me, soldiers of a defeated army who walked into a new world and discovered that the future had already been written, and it did not belong to us. A cold, gray April day chases its biting wind around the tents. It's the Tuesday before Easter in the Christian world, but that doesn't stop the Americans from ordering us to the camp road with our personal belongings. We angrily pack our things and are ready to march out at the designated time. After the last filtering, which drained us, there are fewer than 500 non-commissioned officers left. We silently say farewell to this field that has almost become a second home. The Americans seem to have all the time in the world. It's already noon, and we're still waiting at the gate, without any food. After initial unrest, which turned into blunt indifference, the whole crowd begins to simmer with frustration. They think we're fools. The first voices sound, "Let's go back to the tents!" The impatient ones demand, but the wind continues to blow its endless song. "Let's go," shouts Bill H. Turner, opening the door. We march southward, passing rows of at least 200 American soldiers standing on either side of the road. Among them are Poles, Czechs, and Austrians, a colorful mix of European nationalities, all wearing German uniforms. We leave the collective camps of Cherbourg and reach the highway where we were beaten on December 7, 1944. How peaceful, how nearly sympathetic. The front-line soldiers march beside us today. All their weapons are slung over their shoulders, and not a single hate-filled word is spoken. Silently, both friend and enemy enter Cherbourg, unmolested. Even the French do not react to our presence. We reach the harbor, stumbling over the boardwalk, until we're suddenly ordered to halt in front of 3 anchored U.S. ships. An icy horror grips the prisoners' thoughts. But we have no time to dwell on it. Foreign hands push us to empty our pockets, tossing handmade knives, boxes, and cartons into the water. Meanwhile, the officers go aboard one of the ships and greet the captain like old comrades. Shortly after, we're forced into double rows, shuffled up a small gangplank, and through an iron door frame into the hold of the American troop transport Thomas Marshall. It's 4 in the afternoon, when a voice over the loudspeaker calls attention to a mountain of cartons filled with crackers in a corner of the room where we're quartered. "Help yourselves," the voice says, sparking an eruption of laughter. Like pilgrims to a holy mountain, we make our way to the pile, and within moments, it's gone. Like snow in the March sun. Chaos erupts, but the Americans quickly restore order. The old tent groups find themselves in front of 5-story bunks made of iron bars and canvas. Each bed has a blanket and a life jacket, which can be used as a pillow. The bunks line the walls of the ship, while tables and benches sit in the middle of the room, resembling a barracks mess hall. The galley is nearby, and the cooks are busy. The washrooms and toilets are below, about the level of the water. At 5 o'clock, 2 guards arrive, sitting at a table at the back of the room, between the stairs to the lower level and the galley entrance. They hold their weapons tightly. 10 minutes later, they realize how ridiculous their presence is and lay their weapons down. When the officer responsible for the prisoners enters with the captain and inspects his guards, they are sent away, satisfied with our conduct and the cleanliness of our quarters. With friendly words, the officer reassures us that no one will go hungry. There are plenty of provisions. This wins over the prisoners, who show their appreciation with a spontaneous round of applause. Shortly after 6, the first group is called for food. To everyone's surprise, there's no mad rush to the galley. The comrades line up in rows without pushing or shoving. This can be attributed to the earlier distribution of crackers and the speech by the American officer. Cooking is child's play for the hawker, All he has to do is stir prepared food into boiling water. He and his helpers work until 8 o'clock, serving men from the starvation camps who continue to return with empty plates. Finally, the biggest glutton collapses on his cot, full and satisfied. As we 4 friends sit around a table, the electric lights illuminate the faces of the prisoners, content with both God and the world. Now, we understand the purpose of the interrogations. I open our first conversation since leaving the camp. They're taking us away from solid ground because we still present a threat to them. Schultz says, sounding downtrodden, if they just don't take us to England. Hawker adds, his voice tinged with concern. I don't think so, I say, trying to reassure him. We're on an American ship, and it seems like our guards are going back to the U.S. on leave. I brush away Hawker's fears. As far as I'm concerned, they can take us to the moon. The main thing is, hunger is over. Siegfried doesn't hide his joy about the plentiful food. If you ever get enough to eat, then I'd like to hear something reasonable from your mouth. Schultz grumbles at him. That the war's as good as lost for us doesn't change the facts of our long stay in France. But I don't see why we weren't sent to America before, especially since the risk of being handed over to the French seemed real. It's true that in the U.S., we won't be treated like vacation guests, but at least they'll give us enough to eat, something that never happened in France. I agree. I say, I'm thankful fate has put me on this boat. I'm not about to kiss any Americans' behinds, but I like them better than the French. For us prisoners of war, it's simple, we only have to survive the chaos. Unless someone intends to commit suicide, that's not an option. Siegfried's viewpoint impresses us. I'm going to grab a few crackers as long as they're available, he says with a smile and heads towards the dwindling pile. We 3 stare at the table, feeling a deep satisfaction. I admire Siegfried's clarity. After so much time, I've finally worked through the issues. Now, Schultz, have you digested what I gave you to think about? Siegfried asks. After shoving a carton full of crackers between us, Schultz takes his place. I've only determined that you're starting to think. He says, eat another pot empty, and then maybe you can imagine the map of North America. I'll show you an area not far from Siberia, just as cold and sparsely populated. I know what you mean. Siegfried replies, but I'd rather hunt bears in Alaska than stay in France and clean up rubbish on an empty stomach. He chuckles, clearly satisfied with his point. Schultz reaches for a cracker, then turns to Hawker and me. Siegfried's opinions are in complete agreement with mine. I explain, feeling content with the conversation. I just need a recipe for bear meat. I joke, actually, it's too bad Brilla isn't here with us. He was an excellent shot. The Hawker sighs, lamenting our lost friend, and I exchange a knowing glance with him. Around 10 p.m., a shiver runs through the ship. Unnoticed by us, the Thomas Marshall has left Cherbourg Harbor, steaming under its own power towards the sea. Europe, our homeland, and our families are slowly fading into the night and fog behind us. The fury of war eats at our hearts, its echoes still ringing in our minds. I remember wild battle sounds, the blinding flashes of grenades, and the gunfire that tore into the soldiers' helmets. A terrible enemy grabs my wrists and calmly says, "Come on, helmet, wake up, or the coffee will be cold." I snap back to reality, staring angrily at Siegfried. I realize immediately I was dreaming. Around me hums the sound of the ventilation system, and the life jacket leaves an impression on my forehead, where I sought refuge from the blinding lights. The room rings with the clinking of dishes. Damn it, I mutter, climbing out of my bunk to get my coffee. Siegfried watches me, shaking his head. Is the ship standing still? I ask, confused but feeling a knot of anxiety forming in my chest, wondering if we've reached England. You didn't notice, sleepyhead. Hawker smiles comfortably. Don't you have any idea what that could mean for us? So, what could it mean? Schultz shrugs, unconcerned. We'll be unloaded in England, you fools, I say, growing frustrated. You slept too long to realize what's been bugging us all. Blessed are those who sleep long, Schultz says with good humor. Drink your coffee, helmet, and calm down. We're not getting off here. A Hawker pats my flushed cheeks reassuringly. The ship's waiting off England. We'll join a convoy for the States, probably tonight. Finally, A plausible explanation from Siegfried, and I can eat my breakfast in peace. Later, after we finish washing up in the morning, a voice from the loudspeaker announces that we can go on deck in groups of 100 men for an hour after 8 o'clock. We rush to wash off the soap we brought from Cherbourg, only to realize that the pipes are running with salt water, and it doesn't mix with our soap. Thankfully, there's enough ship soap to solve the problem quickly. Exactly at 8, the door we entered yesterday opens, and a flood of 100 men eager to see the outside world pours onto the deck. I lift my gaze. Through a gentle veil of fog, I see England. The sun has broken through, and excitement fills the ship. Both the crew, guards, and prisoners stand shoulder to shoulder, sharing the moment. Siegfried comes toward me. "Well, my faithful echo of the ragtag squadron, how do you like it with the Navy?" he asks proudly, now that he's feeling the deck beneath his feet. "Up to now, excellent, you unemployed coolie," I reply, in the best mood I've had in a while. "Some of us have suddenly become world travelers against our will," Siegfried remarks, pointing out a few older comrades who look uneasy. "It's the older ones who are worried," I add. "The younger ones seem carried away by the adventure." "What do you think America will be like?" Siegfried asks, furrowing his brow. "It's hard to say," I reply, staring out over the endless sea. "Oh well, it can't be worse than what we've had so far," Siegfried shrugs. "America is a melting pot. It's not a country full of hate, and with so many German, Americans, we'll find some friendly faces." "I agree. Let's be surprised," he suggests confidently, pushing me back below since our time on deck has ended. After a restful nap, we gather at 4 for coffee. Despite the mass production, Hawker knows exactly how to make it taste great, like Mom's. Schultz says, and that means something because he's a real connoisseur. There are plenty of cookies to go with the coffee. Among the Americans on board, it's said that the Germans not only know how to conduct war, but also how to eat. A tall Bavarian man tells a funny story about his first meal with the Americans. "When I first came into their hands, they gave me a strong chicken soup with lots of meat. The guy who brought it to me was so moved by his hospitality that I thought he might cry. Just when I finished the soup and was about to start on the meat, another soldier came and kicked the cup out of my hand. The scraps flew through the air. It was 3 days before I got any more food. We can eat until we burst now," Schultz jokes. "But once we land, we'll probably go hungry again." "You should have eaten the meat first," I laugh. "I imagine you sat for hours, stirring the soup, and that probably made the American angry." Schultz nods, passing around a box of crackers. "Let's eat while we can," he says. "We'll need something in our stomachs for when the hunger comes again." A couple of hours later, Hawker passes out the evening meal. The door to the deck is closed, and 2 guards sit at the table again. This precaution doesn't bother us. Everyone's too full to care, even Schultz, who's showing off how much he can eat. By the 4th helping, we're all done. "We're full," we say in disbelief. "Impossible," we think to ourselves. "That's enough." "Friends," Schultz says, gathering the dishes. "The stomach needs to get used to it again. If you demand too much, you'll pay for it." Tired and full, with our shirts buttoned to the top, we head back to our bunks. At 8:30 p.m., the engines start, the ship shakes, and water splashes on board. Farewell, Europe, dear homeland, I think. May God protect you. Right after breakfast, certain sergeants are ordered on deck for a rescue maneuver. Foggy weather greets us as the ship moves forward. We push through the small door into the fresh air. All around us, boats of every kind are steaming westward in a convoy, a feast for the submarines. We have a long journey ahead, and there's a chance we may have to abandon ship before reaching our destination. A scruffy crew member begins his announcement, immediately translated by an interpreter. He instructs us on how to lower the lifeboats assigned to us into the water. He warns that in an emergency, no one will be able to look after us, so we must pay close attention to the procedure. He further recommends that we organize ourselves, so everyone knows to which boat they're assigned. He assures us that there are enough ships nearby to take care of us if needed, and mentions that rope ladders are being placed around the ship for our safety. That's all that's missing now. Admiral Donitz's gray wolves after us. Schultz whispers to me once the briefing ends. If they find us, they'll target the bigger ships. Our little steamer belongs to the Liberty class, and it's not worth torpedoing. I reply, trying to comfort both him and myself. Weren't your brothers in the Navy? He asks, recalling an earlier conversation. Yes, but not anymore. Since my oldest was killed, I've had no one left, I confirm. Well, then you can sink without worrying that your own brother sent you to the bottom. He says with a dark chuckle, why isn't this ship marked with a red cross? The first breach of the Geneva Convention by the Americans crosses my mind. I don't know. They could make these smaller ships immune to German torpedoes. He mutters as we reach our bunks. We'll send the interpreter to the officers. Maybe they'll raise a Red Cross flag. At 2 p.m., Hawker joins us again, full of curiosity. We stand on the deck, looking at the armada of ships zigzagging through the calm sea, as if guided by a magician's hand. Siegfried, never tiring of explaining, says, we're entering a bad weather zone, his gaze shifting in all directions. He's clearly on edge, his furrowed brow and rust-red hair flapping in the wind. It doesn't look good for at least half of our comrades, he says, grinning, though his expression is mixed with concern. What do you mean for half of them? I ask, feeling uneasy. They'll definitely throw up once the storm starts, he says nonchalantly. Slowly, the ship begins to rise at the front, then sink back down. The rocking motion is too much for some, and soon enough, the first few are starting to lose their stomachs. Keep your mouth shut, you damn fool, Schultz growls, as he leans over the railing. Moments later, he too succumbs to seasickness. The rest of us laugh bitterly as the sickness takes hold. Siegfried mocks us with a grin. Look, the first ones are already throwing up. Shut up. Schultz groans, then stumbles back from the rail, his body swaying as if drunk. I follow him, feeling the same nausea churning in my stomach. Hour after hour, I'm stuck in my bunk. Only lying flat makes the rocking bearable, though my head throbs like 1,000 little devils are attacking my skull. Every attempt to stand is met with overwhelming nausea. I can't even think of food. All conversation feels like a burden. In a haze, I stare at the iron walls of the ship, listening to the sound of water outside until sleep finally takes away the sickening thoughts. The night is restless for all of us who are seasick. But when morning comes, I feel slightly better. After washing up in the grimy washroom, I find Hawker, who greets me with concern. Man, your face is as white as the wall. That's quite a feeling, let me tell you. I wave it off, feeling as though I've been beaten. Wait a moment, he says. I'll brew you some coffee. He slips a slender can of Frankfurters into my pocket. Don't let anyone else see this, he adds with a wink. As he flits around the room, preparing everything, I look around at the stacks of spinach and meat cans in the corner. Even without seasickness, the sight would make anyone sick. Now that we have food, it's hard to stomach. Is this what it's like for rich people with upset stomachs? I joke weakly. Hawker hands me a steaming cup of coffee, the strong aroma filling the air. If you need anything else, just let me know. You stay healthy now. I nod grateful, but as I take the coffee, it's almost instantly returned to the sea, along with everything else. Schultz isn't any luckier, and soon we're both kneeling over the rail, offering our meals to the water gods. All around us, men hang over the deck, sick and miserable. The guards, long gone, have exchanged their weapons for washcloths. In this moment, friend and enemy are united by the same misery. When Siegfried comes on deck during his break at 2 p.m., it seems the fun at our expense has worn off. Come on, get away from the rail and head to the middle of the ship, he orders, his tone firm like a concerned father. Sit here, I'll grab your blankets and coats. Wait for me. Shivering from both the cold and seasickness, we follow his instructions. We lean against a tool chest, watching the Thomas Marshall struggle over the massive waves. The wind is picking up, and dark clouds hang ominously low in the sky. Siegfried returns with our blankets and coats. Wrap up, put on your life jackets, and don't look forward or back. Look up or close your eyes tight. This is the best place on the whole ship. There's vomit everywhere down below, and even the strongest would get sick. We do as he says, and after an hour, it feels a little better, though it might just be that we're imagining it. There's no joy left in us. Everywhere we look, the same misery is reflected in the faces of those around us. Some stand off to the side, trying to keep their dignity intact, while others share sarcastic remarks. "Throw up, comrade, and you'll have peace." Someone calls out. Another warns. If a brown ring comes up, swallow it down fast, or else you'll be in trouble. By evening, the scene in the mess hall is chaotic and undignified. The cycle of swallowing and vomiting continues without rhyme or reason. Men squat, deathly pale, staring at their spilled soup and overturned dishes. But there's no anger. Everyone's too sick to care. At 9 p.m., the ship's captain announces over the loudspeaker that a storm will hit during the night, with waves as large as 10 meters. "Great," Siegfried comments to Schultz and me with a grim look. "I'll get you biscuit cans with removable lids." Hawker offers thoughtfully, passing us both a can. One full, the other empty, which we squeeze between the bunk's bars. I lie back, hoping sleep will come soon to end this torment. For days, the Thomas Marshall has battled the storm-tossed seas, with waves crashing over its deck, tearing loose anything not tied down. Night dark clouds rage above as the ship shudders, groaning under the weight of nature's fury. Inside, we are humbled to the point of being pitiable creatures, weak, miserable, and unable to fight the sickness that has taken over our bodies. We are just a bundle of flesh and bones, too exhausted to resist the storm or the sickness, waiting for sleep to take away the pain. But even as sleep approaches, we know there's no escape from the fury of the storm, and no respite from our misery. At 3 a.m., an announcement comes over the loudspeaker, a message that could change everything. The President of the United States has died from a stroke. This news hits us like a torpedo, but we are too overwhelmed by the storm and our sickness to even process it properly. We put on our life jackets as the storm intensifies. The Thomas Marshall feels like a toy in the hands of the wild elements, shaken, tossed around, and completely at the mercy of the sea. We are driven only by a fear that gnaws at the deepest corners of my heart. Following orders, I tighten my life jacket, and Siegfried and Hawker, already out of their bunks, stand by to help Schultz and me if we lose our balance. "Prepare to die," Hawker says gravely, his face serious. As we make our way out of the bunks, the ship suddenly shudders violently. Either a torpedo or a mine strikes us. A deafening boom shakes the vessel, throwing everything into chaos. Panic erupts as those in the front rush up the stairway, banging on the closed bulkhead. Then, a voice over the loudspeaker tries to calm the panic. "Attention! There's no reason to worry. A swell has simply pushed the front of the ship out of the water and crashed it onto a large wave. In 5 hours, the storm will pass, and we'll be in calmer waters." No reason for excitement. No reason for excitement. Heads hung low and feeling somewhat ashamed, we return to our bunks, relieved for the moment. But outside, the storm continues to rage undiminished. By 8 a.m., on the 14th of April, Schultz and I are sitting on deck, leaning against a tool chest, bathed in the warm sunshine, finally feeling some relief. The Thomas Marshall has proven itself resilient in the past few days of chaos. The rocking is bearable now, and we're heading west once again, in the company of other ships. The sea is calm for the first time in days, and only a few wisps of clouds drift across the sky. The ship is running smoothly with the wind at our backs. Hawker is busy preparing breakfast. He's in a competition with Siegfried to feed us well after our suffering. We get condensed milk, jam, and delicious bread rolls for breakfast, with promises of salmon and mayonnaise at 10 a.m., and Siegfried taking care of lunch. All things considered, it's a good start to the day, but Schultz isn't as pleased. "It's bad enough to tear out your tail," he grumbles, using a vulgar expression I've never heard from him before. "Now that we don't have to worry about food anymore, we have to puke our guts out. Why didn't they just spare us the food?" He adds, clearly upset. "They'd keep it if they could," I reply with a laugh. "You can't blame them for the storm." He shoots me a bitter look. "You're just kissing the Americans' asses because they didn't let us starve on their garbage food." He hisses, his face pale and gaunt, with deep shadows under his eyes. I take a closer look at him. He looks terribly sick and exhausted. There's a mix of sympathy and concern that wells up inside me. "Schultz, what's wrong? You don't look well," I don't know, he mutters. Everything's distasteful to me now. At 2 p.m., Hawker and Siegfried come back, having been given the afternoon off by the American cooks. Do you feel it? It's getting colder? Siegfried remarks, noticing Schultz shivering. I've felt it for a while. Schultz rasps. Do you know why? Siegfried asks, excitement creeping into his voice. I've already told you. We're heading toward Alaska. Schultz replies confidently. You're wrong, Schultz. Our route will take us to Boston, where I have relatives, or maybe straight to New York. I've seen the maps. They're hanging on the upper deck. Siegfried corrects him. Schultz interrupts, not willing to let go of his theory, but Siegfried continues. You're ungrateful for good news. Anyway, today we had an interesting encounter. Don't make it too dramatic, I add. Are we going to meet the icy Stalin? Perhaps something even colder. Without a mustache, maybe? Icebergs, Siegfried says with mock seriousness. Schultz looks skeptical. What do you mean? Siegfried continues. There are 2 huge chunks of ice ahead, and the captain is aware of them. Don't worry. We'll avoid them. Schultz looks satisfied with the change of topic. So how far is it to the New World? I ask, interested. Despite the fine care on board, I still long for solid ground. We've completed about half the journey. Siegfried says, looking downcast. How's that possible? We've already been at sea for 10 days, and it's over 4,000 miles from Cherbourg to New York. A ship can make that trip in 14 days at most. Siegfried shrugs. Yes, a ship, but we're not traveling alone. We're following a zigzag course to avoid submarines, and we've lost time because of the storm. He tries to convince me, but I remain doubtful. If only we had better weather, this could all go a lot quicker. At that moment, a voice blares through the ship's speakers. Iceberg in sight. Everyone rushes to the starboard side of the ship, pressing together to get a glimpse of the iceberg. It's a natural one, rising out of the dark water like a white sugar loaf, but it's nothing dramatic. Still, the word iceberg has a magical quality. Someone behind me says, that reminds me of the story of the immigrant who ran into an iceberg. He wasted so much time chasing after a 4-leaf clover that he didn't notice the iceberg and sank. That was around 1912, right? Another person chimes in. Yeah, it was the Titanic. Someone else remembers. No, the ship was deliberately steered into the iceberg. A 4th person says with confidence. The captain was in love with a millionaire woman, but she didn't like him, so he sank the ship on purpose. I interrupt, idiot, and the conversation dissolves into laughter. Actually, it was just the Titanic. The 1st person corrects. The ship was a world wonder at the time of its maiden voyage. I know about it. I read the book. Another person adds with a smirk. It wasn't about love, says the self-proclaimed expert. It was all about the blue band, the shipping company's prestige. As the iceberg looms ahead, we can't help but feel a sense of awe. 2 more icebergs appear on the horizon, and everyone is silent in respect. By 1040 p.m., we're parallel to the massive icebergs. The largest is about 4 miles away, and only a third of it is visible above the water. Siegfried points out, look at the size of those icebergs. We all start talking about how tall they are, but someone interrupts, saying, That's ridiculous! If 2/3 were underwater, it would hit the bottom by now. Look there! I shout, my eyes wide. A polar bear climbing the iceberg. Look, it's got cubs with it. Everyone crowds around the railing, eager to spot the bear. Schultz scoffs. The beast is big enough to be seen from anywhere. But I keep looking, imagining the poor bears that missed their chance when the iceberg formed in the North Pole. Schultz joins us in the search, but we're all just guessing. Where are they? Someone grumbles. Don't you see them? There on the left projection by the crack. Someone else shouts. Liar. We all mutter, laughing at his exaggeration. The iceberg doesn't care about our foolishness. It stands tall and proud, unaffected by our chatter. As more icebergs appear on the horizon, the storm has passed. The Thomas Marshall continues its journey westward, and dolphins now swim alongside the ship, leaping joyfully through the water. It's a small moment of happiness in an otherwise miserable journey. As we watch the dolphins, I reflect on how strange it is that just a few weeks ago, these same men feeding the dolphins would have risked their lives to catch one. What are you thinking about? A familiar voice interrupts my thoughts. It's Dr. Braun, my philosophy teacher. Oh, what a pleasure! I greet him, relieved to see someone I know. At least your mind's still intact, he says, his large false teeth clicking as he speaks. I comfort him with a simple response. That's exactly right. But I can see he's still worried. Did you survive the seasickness? He asks, tossing a biscuit to a dolphin swimming nearby. It's the first time we've seen any animals in a long while, and I can't help but admire them. I love animals deeply, and I smile, noticing his attempt to lighten the mood. He notices my look of surprise and excuses himself with a shrug. Yes, we have them, he says. I nod with a deeper meaning and gaze out over the endless sea. I see you don't enjoy the joke, but you're right. He continues, his tone becoming more serious. One can never again connect so easily with foolish people. I agree with him, people forget easily. Perhaps it's better that way, in most cases. But then, I add, but the fact that they didn't mark this American ship with a red cross is not just a foolish mistake. It's a violation of international agreements. I've just read an article in a magazine that someone lent me. It mentioned that the victors will sit in judgment over us and accuse us of war crimes. He shifts into more serious waters, saying, let them write what they want. Paper can hold anything, but once the killing's over, they're as guilty as we are. Before we can dive further into that conversation, Schultz joins us. Am I disturbing you? He asks, looking a bit uncertain. No, not at all, I reply. Braun, also upset, says the ship should have been marked. He explains that the interpreter had spoken to the Americans about it, but they offered no explanation. It's best not to make a big issue out of it. Schultz advises, always concerned about keeping things calm. If no one knows about the danger we're in, they won't worry about it. I ask, do you think we're unnecessarily exposed to danger? Braun answers firmly, this Atlantic Ocean is a war zone. According to the Geneva Convention, the Americans are supposed to inform the German Navy about this transport, just like they would for wounded soldiers. But none of the warring powers follow these rules. Some soldiers might choose imprisonment over a hero's death if they knew what kind of conditions awaited them behind barbed wire due to the Geneva Convention. What use are these agreements when no one pays attention to them? I shake my head and throw in, don't say that. And Braun nods. I spent 4 months in a prison camp. The inmates were mostly British pilots, sailors, and commandos. They lacked nothing. The German camp leaders even bent over backward when a bigwig came to inspect or when a neutral committee showed up. Siegfried jumps in with a crude comment. Did they have a brothel too? This causes Braun to look disgusted, but he doesn't answer directly. Well, Siegfried's rudeness aside, we'll soon see how the Americans live up to their own international agreements. Just then, a sharp wind picks up, and the sky darkens. The Thomas Marshall begins to shake. The masthead bends as the ship plunges forward, then back. A storm's coming, Siegfried announces, glancing at the whistling wind. Let's go to our bunks, I suggest to Schultz, who already looks queasy. I've got some delicate intestines for both of you. Are you hungry? Siegfried grins mischievously. Bring the snacks to the bunks so they can be digested when the big vomiting begins, I reply, waving him off as I head below deck. By 4 p.m., the cooks are struggling to keep the coffee in the pots. The ship is plowing through the rough sea, and the rocking movements, which had been bearable, become more irregular. I lie in my bunk, dreading the inevitable. The storm has been relentless for days, but at least we know it's nearing its end. In just a couple of hours we'll be near land. Calmer waters are ahead, or so the captain says. For now, though, there is no relief in the stifling room below deck. We're trapped in this dance of misery, clinging to the thin steel walls that keep us safe from the fury of the ocean. The stiffest men have begun to give in to exhaustion and yearn for solid ground. But then, a realization hits me hard. We're celebrating a victory over something we don't even know yet. What land awaits us? I wonder to myself. Yes, one land can be like another, but it's the people that matter. And we have no idea what kind of people we're about to meet. We've been through hell in Europe, fighting, surviving, and enduring. And now, as prisoners, we will step onto the land of the victors. Those who have shown us every face of humanity, from a smile to a grimace. They've bombed us, shot at us, and thrown us into the worst conditions. Yet, here we are, being delivered to them as defeated men. We've been cut off from our families, denied any news, and thrust onto this ship. We've been subjected to their laws, their systems, and their victories. Now, we stand on the brink of the unknown, with nothing but the ocean between us and the future. How will they treat us? How will history judge us? We are at the mercy of the victors, and there's no turning back. The loyalty oath, weapons training, and the defense of the fatherland seal the young man's fate. He is bound by these ideals, forever tethered to them. But war demands this of him, just as it does to others in different lands. Though their struggles may seem similar, to them, it's not the same. Suddenly, the imprisoned soldier is seen as worse than a criminal. Everything sacred to him is trampled upon by his captors, who fail to realize they are doing the same thing in their own name, with their own ideals. The respect for the vanquished foe is reduced to nothing but a distant memory, and what was once a fair fight is replaced by raw, unfeeling violence. These are the facts we face as we enter this strange land tomorrow. But despite it all, I will leave my baggage and prejudice behind. I will step into this new world with an open mind, ready to help my companions at any time, until destiny guides us back to our beloved homeland. A brilliant blue sky blankets the city of New York as the Thomas Marshall docks in the upper bay of the Hudson River. The German prisoners of war line up on deck, ready to disembark. The Statue of Liberty stands tall, welcoming us, but the sight only deepens the melancholy in our hearts. Despite the impressive display of this land of freedom, we are prisoners, far from home, and our hearts remain heavy. We look upon the towering skyscrapers of Manhattan, weathered and cold, foreign and impersonal. They loom over us, stark against the American sky, and we can only glance down at our worn uniforms, now little more than rags. We did our best to make ourselves presentable, but we are still the defeated, the broken, standing in front of the victorious. As we four friends stand together, taking in the view of the great city, I ask, why did the Americans build such gigantic structures? Schultz responds, it's as simple as the pyramids of the ancient Egyptians. The land here must be so expensive that they had no choice but to build up, reaching toward the heavens. Hawker disagrees. I don't know, I wouldn't want to live in those beehives. I prefer the cottages on the other side of the river. Siegfried chimes in, I agree. As impressive as those concrete towers are, I wouldn't want to live in them, even for free. Behind the wire fence, I watch American children run by, laughing, free, and completely unaware of the prisoners staring at them in silence. In their laughter, I hear the future. In their freedom, I see the truth. And in that moment, I understand. Our fight was never winnable. Not because our soldiers lacked courage, not because we lacked skill, but because history had already chosen its victor. We never stood a chance.